Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is the real reason Kendrick Perkins got called out by Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. So ever since, for those of you guys who don't know, actually, Kendrick Perkins is a former player. Former NBA champion. He played with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He played with the Boston Celtics, where he won his championship with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo. He was part of that championship core. Sort of seemed like as an enforcer. He played the five position, the center position. And he was a great role player that filled his role, and he fit in nicely with that culture that they had with the Boston Celtics back then, when Danny Ainge ultimately put that unit together. And he ended up moving on to go play with the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he played with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and others. And then I think ultimately he bounced around the league, and at one point I think he was even playing on the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he didn't get a lot of minutes playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I think that he just went there to be a role player, and ultimately play with his friend LeBron James. So that's pretty much Kendrick Perkins' career in a nutshell. And since retiring, he became a member of the media. He became a member of the media, and he's been doing the best to make a name for himself. Now, originally, he started off with FS1, Fox Sports 1, and he used to have some cameo appearances on Undisputed and some other shows. That's really where he got his start. And then ultimately, he moved on to ESPN, right? Moved on to ESPN to become like a commentator. No, to become an analyst of sorts. And then he was there. He would have different segments on different shows. And he was at ESPN for a number of years. But over the last 2 years, he has really started to make a name for himself at the network. He started to do that. And I think the way he's been able to do that is through his hot takes that he's been having on players. Another thing that really works well for him is also his Southern accent. Remember, Kendrick Perkins is from the South, right? He has a Southern accent, which to me, I think is absolutely hilarious. Now, I'm not making fun of people from the South, but let's just be honest. The way some people talk that are from the South is pretty damn funny, right? It's one of the things that also makes Shannon Sharp pretty funny. Makes me wonder if we ever got a personality to work on our channel, another personality in the future, we may consider getting somebody from the South, because it seems like people from the South, a lot of people tend to really gravitate around those type of personalities, and they tend to stand out. But on the other hand, he's also usually the angry guy on ESPN. Usually when we used to see him on shows like ESPN First Take, when he used to make appearances, you would always hear him huffing and puffing in the background with him and Max Kellerman. I think at one point they had to tell Kendrick Perkins, stop huffing and puffing on the mic. Ultimately, I think they had to start muting him because he was always getting angry, right? But that was Kendrick Perkins, and that was his personality on there. But ever since becoming a media member, he has had some interesting takes on some players. And he's had some spats with some current players in the NBA, right? The latest example of this was Draymond Green, who was on the Team USA Olympics team. There was a video that came out after they won their gold medal with Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, walking around. And Kevin Durant was basically speaking to the doubters, like all of those people that doubted us, that said the team couldn't do this. And then Draymond Green chimed in, and he said, and Kendrick Perkins, man, you be talking a lot of bleep. We're not going to play it on here because he cursed. He said, you be talking a lot of bleep. Right. And what I think he was referring to was some of the things that he said in the past about players in general, but also some of the comments that he made about the Team USA team. Right. I think at one point he doubted them, and I think these guys were actually listening to him. Right. You actually listen to him. Now, if you think of Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins, they've actually had a past in which they've gone back and forth on the media. Right. Kevin Durant has gone at Kendrick Perkins. He's called out his career and said, listen, he's the best role player. He was making fun of him as being basically a role player. And Kendrick Perkins' whole thing was coming at KD, calling, basically just a way to say that LeBron and his man, because I think it has something to do with that. So him and KD and Kendrick Perkins have had a back and forth. Obviously, you now hear Draymond Green coming at him. And the latest example of Kendrick Perkins going at an NBA player, in this case, a prominent NBA player, is some of the comments that he had to make about Kawhi Leonard. right? Kawhi Leonard, a guy that barely speaks publicly, Kendrick Perkins had some things to say about him. So for those people who missed some of the things that Kendrick Perkins had to say about Kawhi Leonard, take a listen to this soundbite of Kendrick Perkins giving his thoughts on Kawhi Leonard. This was before he signed or he re-signed with the Los Angeles Clippers. Take a listen to this.
Here's the problem that I have with Kawhi Leonard. They have this old saying that goes around the country of America, right? The United States, and it's not just in the South. Kawhi Leonard is a guy that throws stones and hides his hand, all right? And when it comes down to it, we have been letting him off the hook for too long. We have been letting him off the hook for too long. And he's a guy that flies under the radar, that has been doing sneaky stuff, been getting catered to, and just because he's quiet, we don't address him. We looking at this situation with him and Russell Westbrook. This is supposed to be your homie. This is a confidential conversation. You don't use this conversation or ignore this brother phone call to go lure Paul George to come to the Clippers. By the way, when you get to the Clippers, the firing of Doc Rivers, everybody wanted to point the finger at Paul George, but Paul George wasn't the only one that had a saying in firing Doc Rivers. Kawhi Leonard was right there with him, but nobody wanted to blame Kawhi Leonard for what he was doing. And then to top it off, you look at this season alone, right? Kawhi Leonard gets hurt, he goes down. Most of the time when you see a guy go down and your team is in the heat of the battle and they're in the playoffs, they not in the suite, wiggling their toes, eating steak and shrimp. They down there on the bench, encouraging their teammates. They're in the trenches with their guys, giving pep talks, helping the young guys like Terrence Mann be down there in the trenches. So look, we heard about the helicopter rides to the practice facility and to the plane being held up and being late, not being able to take off on time because they was waiting on Kawhi Leonard. Let LeBron James do some stuff like that and watch how people go in the media and kill them. And I'm part of the problem because we should have been addressed this like the numbers on the house. Carry the hell on.
Now, in that soundbite, Kendrick Perkins is saying that Kawhi Leonard is a sneaky guy, the guy that likes to throw his hand, throw a stone and hide his hands and all of these different things. And I'm saying to myself, does Kendrick Perkins even know Kawhi Leonard? Like, honestly, does he even know him? Number one. Number two, what does this have to do with free agency? What does it have to do? It seems to be a personal take. And listen, these are my thoughts. I think Kendrick Perkins is learning from his mentor, Stephen A. Smith. That's what I think he's learning from. I think Stephen A. Smith understands that, listen, you just can't give an analysis on players. You also have to go in on their personalities and in some cases give a lot of hot takes on them. This is the only way you can draw a significant amount of attention to yourself. I think he's learning from Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is known for doing this. And I think this is how Kendrick Perkins is making a name for himself, by stirring up a little bit of controversy, talking about players, talking about them personally. And I think this is the way that he's figured out to make a name for himself. Right, just giving a bare analysis doesn't seem to be the thing that really sells. So it's like, listen, you gotta give some really hot takes. And Kawhi Leonard is the latest example of this, and I think is one of the reasons why one of his former contemporaries, one of his former competitors in Draymond Green, called him out and said, "Yo, Perk, you talk a lot of bleep. You talk a lot of bleep," and I think a lot of players, former players, feel the exact same way. That, listen, bro, you're doing a little bit too much. You're doing a little bit too much. You enjoying this a little bit too much, right? And in my opinion, I think players are seeing through it, and I think he's just going to be one of those dudes that players really don't mess with. I think he's going to be one of those dudes that players don't really mess with because they're looking at him like, yo, you're going up there now, and now you're the one, you're going beyond an analysis. Now you calling dudes out of their names and all of these different things, and I think a lot of players are going to do their best to kind of steer clear of him and say, listen, man, we're not going to be messing with Kendrick Perkins. So these are my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about Kendrick Perkins being called out about Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and even some of the comments that he had to make about Kawhi Leonard? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamers Pro. Wishing you guys an amazing day. Catch you guys on the next episode.